Today has been a day of high drama in Namibia, with the Health Ministry early this morning confirming 2 cases of the coronavirus in Namibia. 2 Spanish tourists who came in on Wednesday and were screened at the Osiagotako airport came through without any problem because the scanners didn't pick up any kind of temperature variations, and they were then tested yesterday and the results have come back positive. President Hage Geingob also had a press conference at State House, and we've got some clips to play for you from the drama of the day. And here they are.
With a sober heart, I must announce this morning that COVID-19 has reached our country. The positive COVID-19 results were received last night on Friday, the 13th of March 2020 at around 21 hours. The tests were conducted on 2 travelers who came to Namibia from Spain. The travelers, who are a couple, started their journey from Madrid, Spain, via Doha, Qatar, and arrived in Windhoek on Wednesday, the 11th of March 2020. On arrival at Osiagotako International Airport, the couple was screened like all other passengers, and also completed travel declaration as is procedure. The screening procedure did not reveal any sign to cause concern. On the same day, one of the couple presented to a private medical practice with complaints of a cough. The attending medical doctor, taking into account the travel history and the individual, determined that samples should be taken for confirmatory test of COVID-19. The specimen was sent to a private laboratory, which in turn sent them for testing in South Africa. As I stated earlier, the test results were received from South Africa yesterday night. Thus, I hereby announce that there are 2 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Namibia. The couple to whom the positive result relate was immediately quarantined and contact tracing commenced. This will be intensified to ensure that all contacts are traced in order to protect the Namibia public and prevent community transmission.
Good afternoon and welcome to Namibia Media Holdings' first update after the coronavirus has now been confirmed in our country. With me is senior journalist Denver Christine. Good afternoon, Denver.
Good afternoon, Danny, and good afternoon to all our viewers on all our Facebook platforms of Namibia Media Holdings, being Republican, Namibian Sun, Algemene Zeitung, Windhoek Express, and Irongo.
Now, we'll be bringing you a couple of interviews very shortly. Denver, what does the global situation look like at the moment?
Danny, it's indeed quite a devastating picture as far as I'm concerned. At the moment, 142,320 reported cases of COVID-19, 5,388 deaths. As far as the number of countries are concerned, 129 countries. We do believe that Namibia has not yet been included in the number of countries, so we know then of at least 130 countries.
Yes, that map you just saw there is from the website of the World Health Organization, so that's really the most up-to-date confirmed information from that side. And Denver, so yes, we show you another map now, and Namibia is now part of this map, and this map also shows how apparently the virus did travel to our country.
Yes, Danny. Namibians were very concerned about it, but I think what was clear from the beginning that it was imminent. And this morning, the Minister of Health and Social Services, Dr. Kalumbi Shangula, did announce to the nation that we have 2 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Namibia. We understand that the couple had traveled to Namibia from Spain.
From Spain, yes, but probably then via Doha to Windhoek. Ministry said they're also following up on everyone that has been in contact with them. Very important, Namibians were asked not to panic, not to send fake news around, and President Hage Geingob also had a very important briefing today. What was the essence of his announcements?
Yes, Donnie, the head of state, following the announcement by the Ministry of Health and Social Services earlier, also had a press briefing at State House just at about noon. And he announced a number of measures. Firstly, the independence celebrations scheduled for next Saturday, that's the 21st of March 2020, have been called off. The swearing in of the president, that is President Geingob, for his second and last term, Donnie, will continue, but it will be conducted at State House. As far as the money that has been budgeted is concerned for the independence celebrations, we now know that the head of state announced that this money will be used to fight coronavirus outbreak in Namibia. We don't have an indication yet as to how much money has been budgeted and how much money is available. We expect an announcement in that regard in due course. What we also know is that a local private school has been locked down for 14 days. Travel from and to destinations relating to Qatar, Germany, as well as Ethiopia have also been put on hold for the next 30 days. The president also said that all international travel by Namibian government officials have also been put on hold for the time being. And what we also know is that huge gatherings, not only relating to next Saturday's envisaged independence celebration, have also been put on hold.
We are trying to get some more information on that. The head of state mentioned public gatherings. So we'll try to tell people exactly how big the gathering and how sport will be affected. But for that, we'll bring you further updates from tomorrow onwards.
Social media posts are anything to go by. There does seem to be concern. Namibians seem to be very worried. Do you have any words of encouragement? How can we protect ourselves?
All right. So this disease, as I mentioned earlier, it's the first time globally in history that a coronavirus has caused this much havoc. Yeah. So it's really up to us to alter the trajectory or the course of this outbreak. And we need to remember that we are not at the mercy of this virus. The age-old war, man versus bugs, it keeps on intensifying because we keep getting new superbugs coming up on the scene, something similar to the coronavirus. But we are still also, as experts are globally investigating and trying to figure out more information on the disease, we need to practice very simple steps. We can practice very simple steps to really prevent ourselves and our loved ones from getting this disease. So, for example, washing hands. That is, for example, a single most cost-effective public health intervention. Washing your hands with running water and soap, very critical. For example, after handling or caring for someone that has coronavirus, or for example, before you eat, after using the toilet, basic hygiene measures. And health workers every time in between patients need to practice their hand hygiene as well. And there's also the respiratory hygiene that we should be practicing. For example, if you have the disease, you need to make sure that when you cough in your elbow like this. Yeah. Do not cough in your hands, or if you cough in a tissue, but not in your hands, because if you touch someone or some surfaces, you can actually spread the disease that way. And also throw away, dispose your tissues or whatever you're using to get rid of the mucus and so on into a dustbin. Dispose it responsibly. Don't just throw it around, because a kid can pick it up and then transmission continues that way. The other thing is also not just avoiding large gatherings, big gatherings. I really commend our president, His Excellency Dr. Hage Geingob, for calling off the independence celebrations, because if the virus is here, and that could be a disaster if it spreads, among our Namibians. So that is really a commendable action, and in general, people should avoid large gatherings and weddings, funerals, large parties, things like that. And if you know that, or if you notice that somebody has a disease, or you know that someone has a disease or is coughing and so on, you should stay away at least 2 meters away from this person.
Thank
because
you.
it spreads in that sense.
Thank you
yeah.
very much, Doctor. And a coronavirus-free.
Yeah, elbow
Yeah,
shake.
great. Thank you very much for your
Thank
time,
you.
Doctor.
So what we've seen in other countries, and that's a concern, is people do panic buying. They buy
The masks
and the hand sanitizers, and then what ultimately happens is when we actually need them, we don't have. So the hospitals will potentially run out of
Okay,
stock.
yeah.
And then the other aspect is, mask, for instance, won't help you.
It won't,
It
yeah.
doesn't protect you. Where a mask is effective is if there's a patient who's sick, we're quarantining him at home, and then he's got a mask and he can't spread it to his family, etc. That's the one. So the patient who's infected has got the disease. There, a mask is a benefit, but it makes there's no benefit to wear it as a protective measure.
Exactly. If somebody that's a reader or a listener, or they are now experiencing symptoms like fever or cough or one of that, what would you suggest we do? Do we now go to a doctor?
Yeah, I think this is a very, very, very important question.
Yeah.
So what I've been advising my patients and from the hospital where I work and my colleagues is basically that the first contact be a telephone call.
Okay. So not physically going in.
Don't go to the doctor's rooms.
Yeah.
Pick up the phone your doctor, your general practitioner, tell him these are my symptoms. That he will then determine whether it's necessary for you to seek help or not. I mean, most of the cases, as I said, will be managed at home with Panado and symptomatic treatment, pain relief, etc. But if we unnecessarily visit the doctors, then we run the risk of spreading the disease. So first contact, telephone call, and then the doctor will then decide, yes, you're sick enough to be seen, but at least then he can arrange that you are seen at a facility where they prepared for you,
where they can be isolated,
etc. So that if I can stress that the first contact should be a telephone call, that's
to your doctor.
That's probably the best, to your house doctor.
Lastly, Dr. Willie, something that you also mentioned is that you want to make sure that you don't overburden your health system.
Yes.
And there's a lot of, I'm a health journalist, so I write a lot about the public sector.
Yeah.
So I think that's where a lot of panic also comes in. You feel we are able to...
Yeah, if we can slow the spread of the disease over a period of time, then the health system will be able to cope. It's the only risk that we see in Italy, for instance, whereas opposed to in China, they managed to slow the risk, spread the patients over a longer period of time. By doing that, the healthcare system was able to cope. In Italy, there was undetected patients for a long period of time. Too many too soon, and then suddenly there's just too many patients for the healthcare system to cope. So what we really want to try and do is to spread the time longer, as opposed to seeing X amount of patients in, say, 3 weeks. We would rather prefer to see them over a 4-month period.
Well, this is the worst that could have happened to us, to be quite honest, and we were fearing it. I can't even say that we expected it. We were hoping that Namibia wouldn't take that route, but we have full understanding of why this decision was taken, given the first positive corona cases this morning. And as the President himself has said, the health of Namibians come first. And as a Namibian, I have to agree with him. But it is catastrophic for tourism, I must admit, because Qatar, Ethiopia, and our transport from Germany, and that includes 3 airlines. It's our own national airline, but it's also Eurowings and Condor. Those are the key bringers of our tourism industry, and basically it means that for the next 30 days tourism will be on a shutdown.
What is your message at this stage to people in the hospitality industry?
We've had a lot of discussions, and we are in constant communication with emails and WhatsApp group, etc. The most important thing that we now need to do is not to panic. We have had already communication with government and through our ministry, but even Bank of Namibia. We are talking to banks. Tourism would need some kind of assistance from the authorities now, not financial assistance, because we know nobody runs around with big pockets of money. But things like tax incentives, tax breaks, tax holidays, maybe a reduction on interest fees on bank loans, for instance, because our companies are sitting, and not only the small ones, the big ones are also sitting on a cash flow problem, because for the foreseeable future, obviously they won't have any income. And given the panic and the reaction internationally, people have almost decided not to travel for 2020, which means that for the rest of the year, the current percentages are that tourism is down by between 30 and 40%. Some say that it's even going to be 50% down. But this will wave over like all the other pandemics have done. So maybe come end of April, we will see everybody has calmed down and everything is back to normal. So we shouldn't do the crazy thing of selling ourselves out and saying you can come to Namibia for almost next to nothing, just come. Just keep level-headed, but we do need to stand together, tour operators, the suppliers of infrastructure such as the hotels, lodges, etc., but also our leaders, our government. We need to see how we can get through this financial mess.
Gita, thank you so much for your time, and thank you also for this message to our tourism industry.
Thanks.
And after that drama-filled segment, and I know there's a lot of worried Namibians tonight, we go on with the roundup of what happened this week on the Evening Review. And we start with an interview between Ugone Tlhahi and Transnamib CEO, Johnny Smith.
Yes, since I've come on board about 2 years ago, we started to relook at the company. One of the first things that we have done was to get the 5-year business plan implemented. Mm-hmm. And of course, where we find ourselves as a company, we are 30 years behind. So we said, let's remain focused on pushing Transnamib towards profitability. Now, the little bit that we have done for the last 2 years means there's still a lot to be done. At least what we are keep on focusing each and every day is to achieve our target in terms of the 5-year business plan, to turn the company eventually into profitability.
Okay. Your business plan speaks to about $2.5 billion that you would require from Treasury. How successful have you been, and how receptive has government been with you getting that money?
Yeah, maybe just to provide clarity to that, in actual fact, that's the requirement of the business plan, but government was very clear with us. For the business plan, we're not going to get any money from Treasury. So we have to use our property as a leverage to borrow the 2.5 billion Namibia dollars, and we're currently in progress with that, and it's going well. Hopefully within the next few months we will have a positive answer on that.
Now, if you would have to use your fixed assets, that would mean that you'd have to leverage these assets. Have you been able to determine which properties, what the value of the different properties are? And if you are going to sell properties, have you been able to at least identify whether we're going to lease property A, sell property B? You know, what is the thinking in that regard?
Yeah, so the first stage of this was really to do a revaluation exercise of our property in totality. So that process was completed in 2018. And thereafter, we said we need to then leverage some of the property eventually to the loan that we will get. So we still don't have a plan as to selling any property. For us now, the first phase is really to say, let us just use it as a guarantee.
Okay.
And then we will then look beyond that in terms of possibly selling. But even if we do that, there would also then be a process of going back to Treasury and getting that approval.
Okay.
On Tuesday, Presidential Advisor on Youth and Enterprise Development, Daisri Matthias, was in the studio and spoke about President Hage Geingoob's youth empowerment legacy.
From a youth point of view, what would you say has been, what constitutes President Hage Geingoob's legacy for the past 5 years in the context of youth empowerment and anything related to the youth?
President Geingoob's leadership has been consequential in a number of ways. The principles of accountability and transparency, they are here to stay. And I think that will always be the expectation for governance going forward. As young people, we are going to inherit the political, economic, social infrastructure of our country. And I think this is a contrast that we must embrace from the onset. President Geingob will be remembered for brokering challenging conversations that have a direct bearing on young people. Issues like land. The second land conference was convened 28 years later, if I'm not mistaken, after the first one took place in 1990, under his chairmanship, and a number of breakthrough resolutions were reached there that would empower young people with access to things like urban land and shelter, controlling rent, and a number of other issues. I think that is a breakthrough. I think President Geingoob's approach on development and the inclusive participatory role of the entire society is one that he'll be remembered for. I liken him to a jazz conductor who has allowed everybody an opportunity. His appointment of a high-level panel on the economy was a demonstration that it is a government that consults and listens and that is creating room for ordinary Namibians to provide solutions to the challenges we are facing. That also includes his town hall meeting approach, bottom-up approach, where the grassroots set the policy priority and development agenda. The Harambee Prosperity Plan was developed from a grassroots point of view and is the quintessential example. And I think finally President Geingob will be remembered for shared prosperity during a period of low growth.
And on Wednesday, the high-level panel on the economy was asked about the impact of the coronavirus on the economic revival plan.
Some important statistics is about 60 to 70% of employment in Namibia is in the agricultural sector. But agricultural sector only contributes around 4%, 4.5% to our national GDP. So what that means is that we have 60 to 70% of our people working very hard to produce only 4.5% of national output, and that's for us. I think as a country, is a critical area we need to address. We will increase productivity and increase livelihoods if, firstly, we increase the output of agriculture given the input that we are putting in. And that's why I think as a panel we spend a lot of time around this particular area. Now, one of the key areas, and that's why I think around employment, we believe that there is an opportunity for adjacent sectors and industries adjacent to agriculture. That's why we mentioned charcoal, that can absorb with a bit more research, with a bit more innovation, can absorb more people, particularly the people, because I think one of the statistics we've seen is that, like, I can't remember the specific percentage, but it's 60 to 70% of Namibians do not have secondary school education. So if you look at that group of people, how you create skills for them will be different, and how you absorb them will be different to people that are at universities. And that's why we believe that area, if we can do research in charcoal, innovation around biomass, all of these can create significant opportunity for growth and increased output from the agricultural sector, one. The second one is that it is critical that we de-risk agriculture from climatic change. There are not going to be many people that will invest in agriculture, particularly more complex agriculture in terms of agro-processing, if there is uncertainty whether there's going to be water next year, whether there's going to be sufficient water in 2 or 3 years. And the other point around water is also the cost of water in Namibia is much higher. So our recommendation is we have recommended that government looks at coming up with a national water infrastructure and pipeline network, like what we have with communication network plans and road network plans. We need one for water. We need to de-risk agriculture from the climatic change, so that if you do that, you will find more investments in agro-processing and also in other manufacturing industries as well. Because we saw a few years ago when there was water scarcity around them, what some of the big manufacturers did. They had to scale down or they had to move their manufacturing somewhere else. So it is a critical area of recommendation that we believe needs significant attention and effort.
So we believe that we can create up to 10,000 jobs in the charcoal industry if we allow invader bush people for permits for Namibians, particularly in the rural areas. We provide permits for invader bush in a responsible manner, and the report gives you all detail around that. So have a look at that. Thank you.
Yes.
Clearly, Corona is relatively new, so by the time we have crafted that, in all honesty, we did not have the crisis to deal with. What we know is that Corona is going to affect some sectors. It will affect the tourism sector, it will affect the hospitality sector, the manufacturing sector, and by and large the healthcare sector. It will affect that. And we have not foreseen the virus by the time we crafted. So if you see recommendations in those sectors, clearly it will be affected. It will be probably unwise of us to say we won't be affected.
But will it be affected in such a way that the recommendation will need to be changed drastically or just amended?
I mean, if I may, I think if you look at the coronavirus, remember in an economy, you will always face periodic crises. You go back to 2008, there's a global financial crisis. In other years, there was a commodity, crisis. Corona is one such crisis. I think our recommendations will stand generally, but I think what you are asking for is how we will respond to Corona and the impact on specific sectors. And I don't believe that what we are recommending was specifically to try and deal with any specific issues, but it was rather more to deal with the structure of the economy and also to deal with, with the emphasis on specific sectors.
In terms of capital that's being committed, that we could validate, it was about 20 billion. The report that you will receive says, give you an update of that, and if I'm not mistaken, there's a figure of, we had about 2.2, 2.3 billion already invested of that 20 billion. It's in that report.
And on Thursday, Namibian Sun editor Toivo Njabela spoke to TUCNA Secretary General Maungora Kavuhia, who commented on the fish rod job losses, among other issues.
Where was your federation and its affiliates, especially those in the fishing industry, when people were losing their jobs in the sea?
When people were losing jobs, we have been debating that.
Yeah.
There is a time even when we wrote a letter and said that, why are we excluded from the Fishing Advisory Council? That was the beginning thing. deal with the appointment of fiscal board and those kind of thing, allocation whatsoever. We were excluded from it. And we questioned various ministers, why are you excluding us? And they didn't listen to us. The issues of fishery and cutting, we talk about it. The issues of tax, Namibia being tax haven, we spoke about it until even EU itself classified Namibia to be a tax haven, which the Minister of Finance and the President vehemently denied. Now we have seen it. So these kind of things we have been raising it. And even the affected workers, we had various meetings with them sometimes. I mean, not always. Even before they came to the state, I traveled to Walvis Bay, we met them. Now, I don't know what is the way forward, but of course, the job losses and the economy of the country is a man-made. We make that ourselves.
In what sense?
In the sense that we institutionalize the corruption issue. We have appointed, we don't look at quality anymore to appoint people in state-owned enterprises and whatsoever. We have allow companies not to pay tax. We have allowed ourselves not to put priority in place. We just spend the money as they come left, right, and center. So there are many things that we ourselves created. And that's starting even from education system. We have trained students that are not capable to question things. So I'm happy with the youth now that some of them are keeping our leaders accountable and they're confronting issues. This is what we've been praying for many years.
On Friday, Jemima Bucas sat down with Education Executive Director Sanet Steenkamp, and this is what she had to say.
So I want to know, can you tell us on what basis are parents asked to contribute to the education of their children in light of some stakeholders saying that obviously education is a myth? And are you looking at strategic ways of introducing the school development fund, or do you think there's a need?
Okay, so I need to give some clarity here. And I can understand how many parents and community members many a times feel frustrated in terms of not of expressing their views and how it's being handled. But in 2013, universal primary education was introduced. It's a worldwide concept. And we said that because the Constitution makes provision for a child to go up to the age of 16 and that education will be free, we said let us cover the cost, especially for the parents who cannot pay school fees. That is what was done. And then we also said we cut out examination fees. The child will not pay examination fees. Government will pay all the examination fees. So that is highly 100% subsidized. The School Development Fund is still in place. It is an account that is established by the Education Act. It is in place, but that is now for voluntary contributions. Now, the question, what we see happening here is that also at a secondary level, we envisage that over the years we should at least stand at 1,000 to 1,500 per child per year in a public school, state school, to be subsidized. We are not yet there. We're now standing at 400 for secondary and 300 for primary per learner. The schools that benefit the most from this are the rural schools. It's a given. They've never had this kind of funds before, never had access to these kinds of funds before. And the aim is to improve and to acquire and for the provision of teaching and learning materials. All right? Stationery and that. Now, the schools that truly suffer are the schools that we're used to charging much more school fees, you know, and parents were prepared to pay the school fees. So a school would charge over here, for example, a school in Windhoek, 6,700. Parents would gladly pay it. Now, where we have a problem is that in the Education Act, it clearly says that we cannot make it compulsory or obligatory for parents to give a contribution. And that is why we say where parents can, and we know that there are quite a number of parents who are also subsidizing other parents. We have evidence to that. We have evidence where if certain parents cannot pay hostel fees, that has not been scrapped. Hostel fees are still in place, but it's minimal. But where parents cannot pay, the state exempt them. There's processes that we follow via Treasury, and these children are exempted from paying the hostel fees. But we also have parents who can afford, who are the harshest critiques in terms of education. If you look, in 1992, 20 children were sharing a textbooks. Over the years, it were reduced to 10 textbooks shared. One textbook shared by 10 learners. And now we are at a rate in specific subjects 1 to 2, you know. And if the textbooks are still used as a resource material, then we shouldn't be having problems with textbooks in schools. Except maybe for the new curriculum where we have to buy new textbooks. But the realities are that everything is getting expensive. A textbook no longer costs $350. A textbook costs between $900 to $1,200 per textbook, depending on what kind of textbook it is, and the publication also. So I think those are the kind of things that we need to keep in mind. The schools, and this is where my appeal to parents are. Much as we say that the teacher's salary is being paid, the textbooks are being provided for, there are schools that send out lists. Yes, the lists are maybe sometimes over ambitious, you know, asking parents, because I was buying stationery and I saw it cost you plus minus $700 if you have to buy everything on the list for the total here. But of course, not all parents can afford that. So we are asking now the schools to ensure that they are not overburdening the parents, but we are also asking the parents, please step in. Please invest and prioritize your child's education. It's the best investment that a parent can make. We can so easily go to the more than 182 private schools that we have, and we comply. We pay the fees. We pay for the sports. But then we have demands from parents to be in the best public schools, to have their children move them from the private schools, and they insist on having the children in the best public schools. Is that fair? Is that right? So those are the conversations we need to have.
Yeah.
Much as we have to allow access and quality for every single child in this country, we have to understand that it costs money to bring music into a school, it costs money for swimming lessons, it costs money to bring in a coach for rugby or soccer or netball or basketball, and we encourage parents to then hold the school also accountable. You know, accountability reports, audit reports, financial reports, that all should be open and to see where the money goes that the parent give, and that there's accountability for that and transparency.
Thank you for joining us this evening, and we'll see you all on Monday. I'm Ashley Smith, the news editor of Namibian Sun.